Hello. I'm going to put out the invite now. Anybody wanting to come into StreamYard, there's the invite. Just click on that StreamYard link. Come on in. All right, there you go. Come on in. Hi, Phil.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Good, man.
I was watching offline last night, so I didn't get in there in time. Good discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, it was pretty good. The one thing that I had forgotten to mention was Acts 16, when the Ruach forbid Paul and the others from going into Asia. Because the division of the assembly up there and Hashatan had set up his camp and his throne up there. But overall, yeah, it was a great study. Hi, AJ. Hi, Diane. I was able to fix my mic situation a little bit, but we still have to control our mics, and we have to turn off YouTube, stay on StreamYard. Hi, Brother Lou. Glad you're here, brother. Hi, Cato. Glad you're in here. Phyllis coming in. Coming in, Phyllis. There you are. Phyllis. AJ, you got to keep your mic muted, brother. I'm getting way too much feedback. I can't hear you, AJ. Can't hear you, AJ. AJ, we can't hear you, bro. AJ, we can't hear you. You had that problem at the end of the last week too. Maybe your mic's turned off or your volume's turned down or something. There you go, Phyllis. Phyllis, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're frozen.
Now you don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's okay.
I can sit here and make faces at you.
Yeah, just sit there like that. It looks like you're just like really concentrating.
Well, I'm going to leave, but save me a space.
You can stay in there. There's Tad. So we got 6, 7. We still got 3 openings. 3 spots are still open. AJ, we dropped you. There you're back again. We'll wait a little bit longer for people still trickling in. Hi, Roy. There it goes. This StreamYard is something else. There you go, Phyllis. You're moving now. This StreamYard is something.
Very good study last night, Brother Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. I was just talking to Phil about that. I forgot what a part of it from last night. It went kind of on, but I meant to mention Acts 16. You may recall that in our study on the Book of Acts, where the Paul and a few of his buddies were forbidden by the Ruach HaKodesh to go into Asia. Well, Asia back in Paul's time was Asia Minor. And so the reason the Ruach forbid them to go up into Asia, which Paul tried to do several times, was because of the division of the body up there, and that Hashatan had set his throne up in Asia, and they had become the assemblies of Hashatan rather than the body of Yahusha. And that's why the Ruach forbid Paul from going up there in Acts 16. So you might want to research that Acts 16, and you can compare that to Revelations 2 and 3. But yeah,
Definitely read Acts 16.
What'd you say, Ted?
I will definitely read Acts 16. Thank you.
Yeah, overall, it was a great study.
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, I had no idea. I mean, you gave me, insight on stuff I had never heard before. So it's like you said, the churches say that it's their start or whatever that was there. Yeah, it just didn't make any sense until you got done. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
I want to give a shout out to my sisters that are on here, Yami and Diane and Marianne.
Yep.
Love you all.
Good morning to all.
We love you too. Hi.
Thank you for my package, Phyllis. You're awesome.
And agree, last night was fantastic, Brother Mark. We thank you. And what it was amazing, I think, is Yahuwah really opened my ears and it was really grasped. So it was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, all esteem to Yahusha.
Yes.
Yeah, I've never heard it explained that way before, and it gave me an understanding. Wow. Woo. I mean, it was total opposite of what, we were taught about the so-called 7 churches.
I'm on.
I have a confession. All night last night I kept telling Luke, I don't get it. And Lou said, I get it. So he's going to help me get it.
Well, I have to admit that I didn't get much of it because we came back from a trip to see my relatives and I was very tired. I was sitting there, but my eyes kept going closed.
Oh, I have to share what just revealed to me. That's exactly what Paul was saying. The women should be quiet in the assemblies, because I was sitting there bugging Lou about, I don't get it. And if we were in an assembly, he would have to be saying, shh, shh.
Yeah, don't forget to look up Acts 16, where it says that the Ruach forbid Paul and them other ones to go into Asia because of what was going on up there. I forgot to mention that last night. So, check out Acts 16 later today. All righty, man. We got 6, 7, 8 people. We got 2 openings left. Rebecca, would you like to come in? Somebody else? Maria, anybody? Try to fill this up. We have 2 more openings in the StreamYard. If anybody wants to come in. Dave, you gonna come in, brother? Somebody. All right. We'll just wait a few more minutes. There's still people trickling in. We'll get started here in just a couple minutes. And y'all want to chat? Go ahead. I'm going to turn my mic off here for a couple minutes.
I have my new computer and praising Yah. Oh, good. This has a much wider screen. Up in my corner in my box, it says Praise Yahuwah. which is fine, but I don't know if I put it there or not. Can anyone help me with that?
That's coming out of StreamYard, Diane.
Oh,
Can't
okay.
take it off. I tried to, but it just won't. I have to have one up there.
No problem.
It's
That's
actually off of the, Natsarim broadcast. So I can take the ticker off where it says, remember to stay in love with Yahushua. Scrolls across the screen all the time. I can take that up. I can't take that.
No, that's fine. I thought it was something I did wrong.
It just means that you're in the special seat, Diane.
You're in the special seat, Diane. There you go.
Praise Yahuwah. Thank you.
But if you stay to the right a little bit of the screen, at least we can see. Yeah. If you go to the left, it covers you up. But you're down low anyway, so we can see either way.
Okay.
I was kind of waiting on Tori to pop in here. I haven't seen her come on yet. A brick. So we'll wait a few more minutes. You guys can go ahead and chatter if you want, talk. I'm going to mute my mic again.
Yeah, I apologize that I had to leave. I hung in there as long as I could because of that storm. I don't know how my brother-in-law AJ how he was affected, but out here where I live, it was getting hot and heavy over here.
Diane,
So I signed out, but I think it was towards the very end, so I didn't miss anything.
Diane, are you below? Where are you in location to Margaret?
Margaret lives right on the coast, right? You might as well say right on the ocean. She lives right on the coast, and AJ and I live in central North Carolina, which is in Raleigh.
Have you heard from Margaret?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, I heard from her this morning. I texted her, emailed her to inquire as to how she's doing. She's doing fine. Praise Yahweh.
Apparently she can answer emails but not texts. She's got her daughter there.
Okay, good. Yes, but she said the sun is out. It's nice and sky is blue, and she said she's doing fine.
We need to pray for all the brothers and sisters in Southwest Florida. It was bad. I mean, really, really bad. They have sent us some pictures. If any on the internet, they have the causeway to Sanibel is down. So if anybody stayed in Sanibel, there's no way to get out if it's not by a boat or by airplane, because they have no access to the main line.
Mm.
It certainly makes a person feel blessed that they are where they are sometimes. And I think, yes, I'm used to what we get over here. I don't know as I could handle that.
I wanted to share with you, I don't know how many watch Lou's YouTube videos and sees, this would be normally the day of the month that Lou would study with Dan. And, but Dan went in for what would be a normal procedure, but while they were doing it, they punctured his lung. So he's going to be in the hospital for a couple days. They were just going to put a port for chemo in his chest, but they punctured his lung.
Well, we'll be saying some prayers. Hoping he's doing okay.
All righty. I guess we'll get started. Maybe the other guys will trickle in here in a little bit. Has everybody noticed that the sound's better? There's not that big echo there. So I did a lot of research and everything, and come to find out, and this is a confession. Okay, I'm going to confess. know why it's doing that.
Did you know you froze, Mark?
Yeah, the screen refreshed, the StreamYard. I don't know why it does that, or it could be YouTube doing it, but I think it's StreamYard. See, when that happens, all of you guys start spinning, on my screen.
Well, we were waiting for the big confession, and then I think you got scared.
Yeah, the confession is I have two mics. There's a mic on my camera, and then I have this Rode mic here, and they were both on. So I was feeding back through my mics. And so I had to turn off the mic on my camera off. So I think, it'll be better now. Oh, boy. Let's see, somebody just lost somebody. AJ.
So do we still have to turn off YouTube? Is that still?
You definitely have to turn off YouTube. Definitely. That was one of the big things said. Then they said to continue to control the mics. Keep your mic away from your speakers. If you have two mics, make sure one's turned off. And that's what my big problem was. And a few other things they were saying that would help, eliminate the feedback. So I did everything on my end I could do, but yeah, we still have to control our mics and turn off YouTube. But I think it's better that like two people can talk and we won't experience that echoing and feedback. I hope. It sounds like it was doing fine when you guys were talking back and forth. I didn't hear any echo at all, at least on my end. Okay, anybody else?
The good thing is, Brother Mark, is that we forgive you for the microphone debacle.
I only confess to keep myself humble, Anybody else wanting to come on? We got three openings here. AJ, you dropped, brother. See if you can come back on. Anybody want to come on? Rose, you want to come on? Cato, you can come on. Yes, sir. Cato, yesterday's video is up. It's downloaded. Just go to YouTube and you can watch it. It's all recorded. Even this Zoom at noon here is recorded, including the chat room. So you can even read the chat room if you rewatch this later today or whatever. Anybody else coming on? Last call. We're going to get started. I'll keep an eye out for people that want to come in, but let's get going. Okay, so we're still studying the book of Romans, or the letter of Romans, to Romans from Paul, and we left off in chapter 12. So we all can go to chapter 12. I don't see William Kennedy on here either. Maybe he'll come back in here. Maybe he'll come in shortly. Okay, so Romans 12. I'm going to read Romans 12, and then I'm going to get some readers, volunteers for 13 and 14. Okay, so here we go. I call upon you, therefore, brothers, through the compassion of Yahuwah, to present your bodies a living offering, set apart, well-pleasing to Yahuwah, your reasonable worship. Okay, so that's a lot right there, right off the get-go, and it's very powerful, really. So just see if we can kind of understand what that just said, because it's very spiritual, really. Hi, Shelly. We're glad you're here. You can come on into the StreamYard if you want. Just click on that StreamYard link if you'd like. I'll put it out there, that thing right there. Follow directions. It'll bring you right into the StreamYard, and I'll let you in. Anybody? Okay, so let's see a look at this. So through the compassion of Yahuwah, to present your bodies a living offering. So what did that mean? Can anybody explain that? You want to take a stab at it? Go ahead, Yami, or Rule.
That we turn over our lives to him, we dedicate our bodies and our lives to him.
Yeah, I would say that's right. You know, I mean, to be his temple, to put off your body, leave it in the grave, and then turn it over to him, and it becomes his temple. And so in the overall picture, we're all living stones, and he's assembling us and building his temple with living stones, right? Completing his body, his assembly with the living stones. And so we sacrifice our body to him so it can be his body, his temple, for his dwelling place type thing. And set apart of everybody knows what set apart is, set apart from the world or from darkness, or, you know, set apart from our flesh. Well pleasing to Yahuwah. It pleases Yahuwah for us to do this. Your reasonable worship. Anybody want to take a stab at what that means? Your reasonable worship. So this would be pointing towards obedience. So obedience is your reasonable worship. So we don't have to go doing all kinds of crazy religious rituals and things in order to satisfy Yahuwah. We only need to be obedient. So obedience is a reasonable worship of Yahuwah. And so some false teachers out there, you know, they try to spin this a little bit, but it's what it's speaking of is your obedience. So we can look this up a little bit. Let's go to, it's kind of important to understand this. This is huge, really. Let's go to 1 Samuel 15 one time. 1 Samuel 15. 22 and 23. Verse 22 and 23. It says, Then Samuel said, Does Yahuwah delight in burnt offerings and slaughterings as in obeying the voice of Yahuwah? So is he like burnt offerings and slaughterings better than people obeying his word? That's the question. As in obeying the voice of Yahuwah. So obeying his word, the words come out of his mouth, his instructions. That's the question, right? Look, to obey is better than offering. To heed is better than the fat of rams. For there that we just got the question answered. So to obey the voice of Yahuwah is better than burnt offerings and slaughterings. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and stubbornness is as wickedness and idolatry. So if we're being stubborn, we're not obeying, or we're rebelling against Yahuwah's will, then we're acting out the sin of divination, and we're being wicked and committing idolatry. That's pretty heavy duty, isn't it? Okay, so it kind of shows us here what's going on with the reasonable worship. And the next verse says, And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you prove what is that good and well-pleasing and perfect desire of Yahuwah. And so this is saying, basically, throw out religion. Get rid of the offerings and the works that we're trying to gain favor to Yahuwah with here, and instead renew our mind. So what does by the renewing of your mind mean? So be transformed by the renewing of your mind. What does that mean? Can anybody explain that to us? Lou White? Tad, go ahead.
I think it is the renewed covenant that is now written on our hearts and in our minds, so that we prove what's good and well-pleasing.
Yeah, so we have to pitch out what we've been taught, especially by Christianity or Islam, some type of religious organization or corporation. And we need to get it out of our mind, pitch it out, get rid of everything we've been taught, and renew our mind with pure truth by reading the scriptures. All right? So we reprogram ourselves with pure truth. We get out all the fossilized customs out of our mind. All right? Lou White, do you have anything on that, sir?
I would add that it's related to a lot of other places in Scripture, but even Paul's writings talking about the old wine, which you were basically referring to, the teachings of men, and also the old ways, the old covenant involving the priesthood and the animal blood. It's all gone. It's obsolete. And the old, we have to become a new wineskin. That's basically relevant here too. Oh, that word mind. It's also a word that applies to the concept of our heart, because the word heart and mind is the way we think, and we reprogram our minds with the renewing of the living word. So we know that it related to the context here, what Yahuwah really likes us how he likes us to live and think. Formed. Yeah, that's a big word too. This is really loaded with spiritual meaning.
Yeah, it really is. So I think that we are safe to say that the obedience is better than offerings of animal blood and all that, and that our reasonable worship is obedience, and by the and be transferred by the renewing of that mind is to get all the old teaching out, pour out the old wine, put on the new wine sack, which is the new creature, right? And when we get cleaned up and go through the transformation, right, into a new creature, and we put on the new wine skin, and now we can accept the new teaching, the new wine into our new wine skin. But we got to put all that stuff out before we can do that, because we can't mix the new and the old wine. So, symbolically, if you do that, if you mix new wine into the old wine and the old wine sack, what happens? The old wine sack will burst, and so you could go crazy. So we can't do that. We have to get rid of the old in order to bring in the new. And, in John 17 there, it actually gives us a really good example of what Yahushua's will is, Yahuwah's will for us. And that is that we all become one-minded. So the renewing of the mind also means that we're all in agreement. We all have the same mind, and we're all in the same body. There's no opposition that exists. We become united as one assembly, or the body of Yahushua, or the assembly. We really need to throw that religion out. Tad, could I get you to go to Mark 12 and start reading at verse 24 through 34 for us?
Okay. starting at verse 24 in Mark 12. And Yahusha answering said to them, is this not why you go astray? Because you do not know the writings nor the power of Elohim? For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as messengers in the Shamayim. And concerning the dead, that they rise, have you not read in the book of Musha at the bush, how Elohim spoke to him, saying, I am the Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Yishak, and the Elohim of Yaakov. He is not the Elohim of the dead, but Elohim of the living. You then go greatly astray. And one of the scribes coming near, hearing them reasoning together, knowing that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the foremost command of all? And Yahusha answered him, the first of all the commands is, hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah our Elohim, Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the foremost command. And the second, like it, is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other command greater than these. And the scribe said to him, well said, teacher, you have spoken the truth, for there is one Elohim, and there is no other besides him. And to love him with all the heart, and with all the understanding, and with all the being, and with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself, is more than all the burnt offerings and offerings. And when Yahusha saw that he answered wisely, he said to him, you are not far from the reign of Yahuwah. And after that, no one was bold enough to question him.
Okay, thank you, Dad. So I left my mic on. There wasn't any echo. So I think we're good. Okay, so this right here, I think, is a powerful real revelation for us to understand what renewing of the mind is. So if we love Yahuwah and we love others, have we renewed our mind? Yes, we have. And then it goes down here and explains to us here in 33, at the end of 33, it says, and to love one's neighbor as oneself is more than all, not just some, but all of the burnt offerings and offerings. Okay, so that kind of right there allows us to understand what we just read. Does it not? Have we not renewed our mind with love for Yahuwah and others? And have we not come to the realization that to love our neighbor is more powerful than all the burnt offerings and offerings that we could do to Yahuwah? Yeah, he doesn't care about all of them. But when we start loving him and others, all of a sudden now this is a reasonable sacrifice to him. Love. This kind of brings it all together, gels it. Everybody on board? I know there's a lot in those little couple verses, man, but yeah, it just kind of all boils down to that, doesn't it? For I say, through the favor which has been given to me, to everyone who is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he should think, but to think soberly, as Yahuwah has given to each a measure of belief. For as we have many members in one body, but all members do not have the same function. So we, the many, are one body in Mashiach, and members each one of one another. So here we get confirmation that there's only one assembly, the body of Yahusha. It's the only assembly there is. Okay, so we can't divide the body of the Mashiach. You can get more confirmation on this in Ephesians 4, 1 Corinthians 12, and Colossians 1:24. And we covered that pretty heavily last night. Go ahead, Phyllis.
I don't understand how the body is divided. If the body's not supposed to be divided, then what's dividing the body? Where is the proof the body is divided? That's the part I don't understand.
Yeah, the body is made up of different components to make one body, right? So our eyes, our nose, our hands, our feet, our heart, all these different components make up just one body, because each one of us have all those components to make up our one body, right? So all of the members make up the one body of Yahusha, and he's the head. We're everything else, right?
Who says we're divided?
Huh?
Who says we're divided?
The different religions, the different religious systems around the world, the denominations within Christianity, all the religions of the world, including the atheist and all the other crazy stuff, all of that, everything except for the one body. So
But they're not the Natsarim. The Catholics, and they're not the Natsarim because they don't know. I don't know. I just don't understand.
No, and that's a vital point. And I was just going to get to that as I went. Teachers lead into confusion. Okay, so there is people in the Christianity that hasn't been called out yet that are part of the Natsarim. Okay, and so the body's still divided because those sheep are still lost off in Christianity, you see. But even within the body of the Natsarim, within our community, within our scope, within our perimeter, we have divisions. We have the flat earth people, we have the serpent seed people, we have the Enoch people, we have the different calendar oppositioning each other.
How do you know that's not just being the legs, the arm, the eye, and the different parts?
Because well, it could be, I mean, I don't want to isolate those people that's not my point. It's not to isolate them and say that they're not part of the body, but it could be what you're saying there. But the point I'm trying to make is we all need to be at least have the same foundation, and we all need to be in the renewed covenant. We have to be, there's only one covenant we can all enter. So are they in that covenant? Well, to me, the main core of the Basora of Yahusha, is what brings us all together. And we're all in the way of Yahuwah, right? Following the way of Yahuwah, of Yahusha. We're on the true pattern of Yahusha. Then we would assume that we're all in the renewed covenant, in the same one covenant. Do these outside stretches, if you will, of the Basora, okay, are they dividing the body? They seem to do that very thing, especially if you start talking calendars. People get mad. I've seen them split and not come back to speak with the other Natsarim that they were worshiping with, Yahuwah together with, because they were arguing over when the day starts or when Shabbat starts. See what I'm saying? So there was a division there. Go ahead, Lou.
Thank you. I noticed that a lot of the people that seem to be the most divisive and judgmental have mostly a pet doctrine that they have to keep reviewing over and over and over. And this doctrine that they stick to just overwhelms, and they have to keep explaining it. And it really doesn't have anything to do with obedience or the knowledge of Yahuwah at all. It has more like to do with behavior, watching calendars, like you say, or some pet doctrine that carries them away so much that Romans 12, which is what we're on now, is one of my favorite of all the, I mean, Romans is just awesome. It's a beautiful letter. But Romans 12 is focusing on how we should be behaving. And it's hard to live up to if you don't have the Ruach HaKodesh. But when you see this chapter and read what its message is, it's like, how could I have ever thought that I was in a good place when I was a Christian? I just, it doesn't work. You can't do it. And when we receive His Spirit, we get it. But the pet doctrines are dividing us. They're like winds of doctrine that just, where'd that come from? What's that wave? You know, and there's some new one coming all the time. You know, I was mentioning that back in 2011 with Mark Davidson. I said, you know, the stuff that's coming at us, we have to address it and see if we can keep some of this nonsense from growing. But it still grows. As wild as it is, the stupid stuff that people get into their heads seems to be overwhelming them. And we just have to, I don't mean to say stupid, but it's just that we're sheep and we're easily misled. But I agree, you know, wholeheartedly with this, with what Phyllis is referring to about how do we know that we're divided, you know. It's pretty obvious, really. But,
Yeah, thank you for that, Lou. You really hit the nail on the head, actually, when you said that the Ruach is what gives us the unity. So if we're in the one body of Yahushua, we all have the Ruach HaKodesh and dwell in us, the Mashiach in you. That's what gives us the unity. That's how we are the one body. If they don't have the Ruach, then there's a set apartness, or there's a gap. There is a division. And so sometimes people who say that are Yehudim are not, because they don't have the Ruach. So what's the Yehudim? Well, Yisrael, the bride, the one body, the assembly is Yisrael. So we have to engraft into Yisrael as well, and then we're united, right? And so there's no division if we're engrafted. But the ones that are not engrafted, there's a division there. There's a separation between the body and the ones that have not entered into the renewed covenant, or not in the body. So that there's a difference as well. But yeah, the Ruach gives us the unity. That's a very powerful statement, Lou. Thank you for that. Anybody else got anything to say about that? What a great question. Okay, let's move on a little bit, see what else we get ourselves into here. I think we left off on 6. Now having different gifts according to the favor which was given to us, let us, what's the favor which was given to us? Wouldn't that be the Ruach HaKodesh? I think so. Which was given to us, let us use them accordingly. If prophecy, according to the portion of belief. If serving, in the serving, or he who is teaching in the teaching, or he who encourages in the encouragement, or he who is sharing in sincerity, he who is leading in diligence, he who shows compassion joyously. Let love be without hypocrisy. Shrink from what is wicked, cling to what is good. In brotherly love, tenderly loving towards one another, in appreciation giving preference to each other. What's that mean by giving preference to each other? Who? The ones in the body, right? The ones we're united with, right? It's partiality between brothers of those in the body is a sin. We have to all treat each other the same. Everybody's exactly equally important, no matter what component you are in the one body. Sometimes it doesn't matter if you're the heart or you're the anus. There's no partiality. No one is any more important than the other. Showing partiality within the body is a sin. Even if you achieve the great command to love one another as you love your neighbor as yourself. Even if you can achieve that greatness, that perfection, showing partiality to a body members is a sin. We have to be careful about that. Not idle in duty, ardent in ruach, serving the master, rejoicing in the expectancy, enduring under pressure, continuing steadfastly in prayer, imparting to the needs of the set apart ones, imparting to the needs of the set apart ones, that's the body. So you're talking about the body here. Pursuing kindness towards strangers. These are the ones that are not in the body, but we're still to pursuing kindness towards the strangers. Because they could be a body member, just hasn't been woke up yet. We don't know who they are. Yahuwah knows. Bless those who persecute you. Bless, do not curse. This is almost a definition of perfect love. Does not Yahuwah let the rain fall on the just and the unjust? Yeah, he does. He shows love to everyone. So here, bless those who persecute you and bless those who and do not curse is telling us that we should forgive, release, and bless and love others rather than put curses on them and hate them and ask Yahuwah to kill them because they did something to us we didn't like. We shouldn't act that way, and we shouldn't ask Yahuwah to do harm to someone else just because they did harm to us. Okay. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. So we're acting in unity with the members. All members are doing what all the other members are doing. This is how close Yahuwah wants us united. One weeps, we all supposed to weep. One rejoice, we're all supposed to rejoice. Acting as the same. That's how much Yahuwah desires and wills us to be one with him. No division at all. Be of the same mind toward one another. Do not be proud in mind, but go along with the lowly. Do not be wise in your own estimation. Repay no one evil for evil. Respect what is right in the sight of all men. If possible, on your part, be at peace with all men. Beloved, do not revenge yourselves, but give place to the wrath. For it has been written, revenge is mine, I shall repay, says Yahuwah. And you better believe he will. I'm not going to go into any details, but I can tell you in my lifetime, when things have happened to me, and I accepted the wrath and turned it over to Yahuwah, stuff happened to those people. And I just stay humble about it. I don't want to say he did it because of me, revenging me. I just say he did it for his will. But it happened so many times that I'm afraid it's not a coincidence. So Yahuwah takes revengeance on people that poke him in his pupil. Yahuwah, when somebody does something wrong to one of his people that are in the gotta let some people here in. There you go. when somebody does something wrong to one of his elect, his bride, it's like they're poking him in the eyeball. That's what he says. And so we just take the wrath and let Yahuwah deal with it. And he will. So do not take revenge yourselves, but give places to the wrath, for it has been written, vengeance is mine, I shall repay, says Yahuwah. Instead, if your enemy hungers, feed him. If he thirsts, give him a drink, for in so doing you shall heap coals of fire on his head. Okay, so what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to send him, you're sending him to the lake of fire or to hell or something? That's what Christianity teaches. No, it does not. It just means that he's going to be red-faced. You're going to embarrass him because he's treating your righteousness or your goodness bad. It's wicked. Go ahead, Tad.
I was just going to say the same thing. You're shaming him.
Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Okay, so this is pretty clear. We're not supposed to take vengeance on our own to anybody. We're supposed to love our enemy, love everyone. If our enemy hungry, if he thirsts, give him food, give him water, give him drink, whatever. Do good to him and let Yahuwah worry about the vengeance. That's perfect love, folks. Go ahead, Lou.
I was just raising up this tea that Phyllis gave me before the show, and I didn't have any other comment. I was just going, thank you for the tea.
Okay, doke. All righty. Everybody with us? Anybody got any questions up to this point? Any fog we need to clear up before we move further? Anybody? Any comments? Any questions? No? How about a volunteer to read chapter 13 now? Dad, go ahead, bro.
Okay. Let every being be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from Yahuwah, and the authorities that exist are appointed by Yahuwah. So he who opposes the authority withstands the institution of Yahuwah, and those who rebel shall bring judgment on themselves. For those ruling are an object of fear, not to good works, but to evil behavior. Do you wish to be not afraid of the authority? Do the good, and you shall have praise from it. For it is a servant of Yahuwah to you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword in vain. For it is a servant of Yahuwah, a revenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. Therefore, it is necessary to be subject, not only because of wrath, but also because of the conscience. For because of this you also pay taxes, for they are servants of Yahuwah, attending continually to these duties. Render therefore to all what is due to them, tax to whom tax is due, toll to whom toll, fear to whom fear, respect to whom respect. Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves one another has performed the Torah. For this, you shall not break wedlock, you shall not break murder, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet. And if there is any other command is summed up in this word, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no evil to a neighbor. Therefore, love is completion of the Torah.
Hang on a minute, Dad. Okay. was a whole lot said here. Okay. So he who loves another has performed the Torah. Yeah, I'm on mute just for a minute, Dad. And then it goes on down here to say that to put on the let me see, where was that? Oh, okay. And all right, so right underneath there where it starts, it gives 5 of the horizontal commands. Okay. And if you notice, I think every time, really, if I'm not mistaken, that Yahushua mentions these commands like this, it's always the horizontal commands. He never talks about the first 4 because if we don't love our brother who we can see, then we can't love him. So we have to love others first. Even though the first command is to love Yahuwah, he says, if you hate your brother, the people who you can see, then there's no way that you can say you love me. You're lying, right? And so that's why this all adds up under the love your neighbor as yourself command. It's all the same thing, because if you obey these 5 commands here that's stated here, then you love your neighbor as yourself. You have to. You cannot hate your neighbor if you're obeying those commands. And if you're loving your neighbor, you cannot be disobedient to those commands. They go hand in hand. There's no separation there. You do one, you do the other. If you do the other, you do that one. See what I'm saying? It's all together. And it's the same with the first 4 as well. The vertical commands, if you will. If you love Yahuwah, you're going to automatically obey those. If you obey the first 4 commandments of the 10 Debarim, the love commands, then you automatically love Yahuwah. These are the instructions on how to love him. And these here that we're reading here are the instructions on how to love your neighbor. It all goes hand in hand. And these aren't new commands. These are all found in the Torah. Right? So you shall love your neighbor as yourself, as in Leviticus 19:18, right? Yes, it is. So, love allows us to obey all the commands. If we love Yahuwah and we love others, then it allows us to obey all the commands. If we obey all the commands, it allows us to love Yahuwah and love others. That's why on these 2 commands hangs all the Torah and the prophets. Okay, everybody getting that? Any questions on that? That's very important stuff. Toria's spinning on us there. Anybody? Okay, Dad, let's continue on then. I hope everybody's understanding that.
Okay, continuing on verse 11. And do this, knowing the time, that it is already the hour for us to wake up from sleep. For now our deliverance is nearer than when we did believe. The night is far advanced, the day has come near. So let us put off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light.
Okay, hang on right there. Can you explain to us, Tad, or anybody else really that wants to, what putting on the armor of light means? The night is far advanced, the day has come near. So let us put off the works of darkness and let's put on the armor of light. Can anybody explain that? Go ahead, Lou White.
Had to stop and unmute. Well, the obvious thing is the context tells you that in the following verses after this, it explains what the darkness is. And the obvious turning away from that is what it's referring to. And the armor of light, what an amazing spiritual meaning that would have. The only good thing would be Yahusha's mind and his word and his guidance, his instructions. So the armor of light is obviously the works that we would perform that were previously things like drunkenness and uncleanness and partying and living together in indecencies and not fighting and envying, and putting on the Master Yahusha. He's the armor. And he goes into that in another place. I think it's in Galatians, he talks about it. The parts of the armor, It's just an amazing thing that he would review that here in Romans 2. And make no provision for the lusts of the flesh.
Go ahead, Phyllis.
I don't. What does he mean by the? I can't find it right now, but the Lila is far advanced. What? And the Yomas has come near. I'm sure that's. I don't know. Understand.
Well, personally, I take that as the darkness is far advanced, is that the devil's schemes, so the schemes of the devil has advanced and has overtaken the world. So the darkness is the ruler of this world, and it's far advanced. So he's taken over basically the whole entire world. Doesn't it say somewhere in Scripture that the devil has deceived the world? The whole world has been deceived by the devil, and as in the Yom, the Yom has come near. To me, means that we're getting really close to the second coming of Yahushua. He's the great light. We're getting close to the end of the age. Anybody else got anything on that? That's the way I understand it. Anybody else got anything different than that? Okay. Yeah, Lou, putting on the Mashiach, I thought you hit the nail on the head on that one. But put on the armor of light, it's definitely putting on Yahusha, the Mashiach, getting into the Mashiach, getting in him and us and him type deal, the body of Yahusha. So we're putting on Yahusha, right? And this is the putting on the armor of light is Yahusha. The armor of Yahuwah is Yahusha. It's not a Roman uniform or a Roman costume or something that we're finding parts and putting them on to protect ourselves. We're being protected in Mashiach. So he's the armor of light. He's the armor of Yahuwah. Straight across the board. There's nothing else but Yahusha. Okay, he's our mentor. He's our teacher. He's the Ruach in us. His Mashiach in us. We're in him. He's our armor. He protects us. I'd like to go to on that note. Tad, go ahead and finish that chapter, and then I would like to look at a couple confirmations. Go ahead and finish the chapter.
All righty. Picking up in verse 13. Let us walk becomingly, as in the Yom, not in wild parties and drunkenness, not in living together and indecencies, not in fighting and envy, but put on the Master Yahushua Mashiach, and make no provision for the lusts of the flesh.
Okay, so I think that just confirmed what we were just saying, that the armor of light is putting on the Master Yahushua Mashiach. Okay, kind of just told us that, did it not? Okay, so let's take a look, everybody. Go to Isaiah 59, verse 14. Isaiah 59, 14 through 17. Can you read that for us, Tad? 14 through 17.
Absolutely. And right ruling is driven back, and righteousness stands far off. For truth has fallen in the street, and right is unable to enter. And the truth is lacking, and whoever turns away from evil makes himself a prey. And Yahuwah saw, and it displeased him that there was no right ruling. And he saw that there was no man, and was astonished that there was no intercessor. So his own arm delivered for him, and his righteousness upheld him. And he put on righteousness as a breastplate, and a helmet of deliverance on his head. And he put on garments of vengeance for clothing, and wrapped himself with ardor as a mantle. According to their deeds, so he repays wrath to his adversaries, recompense to his enemies. He repays recompense to the coastlands. And they shall fear the name of Yahuwah from the west, and his esteem from the rising of the sun, when he comes like a distressing stream, which the Spirit of Yahuwah drives on.
Party's over. Look out, boys. Here's an overhaul.
What? What was that?
I said, the party's over, boys. It's time for an overhaul.
All right.
Phyllis,
So-
what type of tea did you have?
What's in that tea? That's a good one, Diane. I love y'all. Y'all funny. Okay, so look. This down here, which says, and he saw that there was no man, and was astonished that there was no intercessor. So his own arm delivered for him, and his righteous upheld him. This is talking about Yahuwah as our deliverer. Okay, so he's putting on what? The armor of light, which is Yahusha. His body is Yahusha, the firstborn of all creation. And we're also to put on the body of Mashiach, Yahusha Mashiach ourselves. And when we enter into the body or the assembly, that's exactly what we do, is we put him on. We're now in him, right? We're in his body. We're a component in his body. We put on the armor of light. Okay, so very interestingly, in 17, it says, and put on the righteousness as the breastplate. The breastplates of righteousness. Isn't that the same thing that's in Ephesians 6? Yes, it is. And a helmet of deliverance, isn't that the same thing that we find in Ephesians 6 when it describes the armor of Yahuwah? Yes, it is. He put on the garments of vengeance for clothing and wrapped himself with the ardor as a mantle. Yeah, he put on a body. Yahuwah did. The armor of light. The armor of Yahuwah. And the same armor that he tells us to put on, which is him. See the connection? Okay, so just remember that. That was Yahuwah speaking now. That was Yahuwah directly speaking. The mouth of Yahuwah. All right, that wasn't no man. And so now, if we take what we just learned there and run over and take a look at Ephesians 6, everybody, Ephesians 6. We'll see the connection here, or the correlation, if you will. And Ephesians 6, probably 14 or 11 through 19, Tad. You want to read it?
Sure.
11 through 19, sir.
Okay. Starting at 11, it says, put on the complete armor of Yahuwah, for you to have power to stand against the schemes of the devil, because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against Ruach-like entities of wickedness in the heavenlies. And that's talking about demonic forces. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Yahuwah, so that you have power to withstand in the wicked yom, and having done all, to stand. Stand then, having girded your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of the Basora of peace. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, with which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Ruach, which is the word of Yahuwah, praying at all times with all prayer and supplication in the Ruach, watching in all perseverance and supplication for all the Kodashim. Also for me, that a word might be given to me in the opening of my mouth, to be bold in making known the secret of the Basora.
Okay, so what this is describing here for us is Yahusha in you, the Mashiach in you. That's what it really is. You can go back and see the correlation there, what we just read in Isaiah, with the breastplate of righteousness and the helmet of deliverance being Yahuwah's body, the word, the firstborn of all creation, Yahusha. Okay. So we're putting on Mashiach, and Mashiach also indwells us. We're covered inside now with the full armor of Yahuwah. We can't be, he protects us. Okay, so we can't be defeated. We can't be harmed unless Yahuwah allows it, as he did with Job. You know, it's really weird because when you read Job, we kind of get a sense of this game going on between good and evil, between Yahuwah and the devil. Because Job comes, the devil comes up into the councils of heaven and the courts of Yahuwah with all the other Malachim. And he said, where you been, devil? He said, oh, I've been going to and fro among the earth, seeking who I may devour, right? And he says, oh, yeah, did you check out Job? Did you notice that he's worshiping me, even though I made him a lowly man? He's going to die, and he knows it, but he's still worshiping me. See how good he is? Unlike you, devil? Yeah, that's just because you're giving him everything. Well, all right, take it all from him, but don't you dare hurt him. So now he goes down there and kills all Job's family and takes all his stuff and everything, comes back up, and he says, well, they have another council. So how's Job doing down there? Oh, yeah, flesh for flesh, kill him. I mean, make him sick, and he'll stop worshiping you. So it's almost like a game. They're playing back and forth, isn't it? Isn't that almost like a game? So he goes down there, he says, strikes Job with sickness, puts boils all over his body from head to the bottom of his feet. Did Job still worshiping Yahuwah? All right. So what happened there? Well, apparently Yahuwah won that section, that part of the game. It's kind of weird, but we're protected by the armor of light as long as it's Yahuwah as well. If Yahuwah's not in it, in any of destruction or something to come in our lives, it's not going to happen. So we need not worry about it or even think about it. If something does happen in our lives like that, then we know that there's some reason Yahuwah is allowing that to happen. Otherwise, it wouldn't be. So it's Yahuwah's will, so we accept it. We have to accept what Yahuwah wants and how he judges things. You have to. Otherwise, the devil wins. So I think it's pretty clear here then that, Yahusha is our armor. It says, having girded your waist with truth. Well, Yahusha's truth. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So that's Yahusha. His righteousness is our righteousness. Birthplace of righteousness, that's Yahusha. He's the only one that's righteous. Basora of peace, he's the Prince of Peace. It's all about him. The message of peace is Yahusha. You know, you see it? It's all Yahusha, man. Helmet of deliverance. Who's the deliverer? Yahusha. And then it even goes down here. It says, take up the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Ruach, which is truth. That's Yahusha. Ruach is truth. That's Yahusha, which is the word of Yahuwah. It tells us what it is. The word of Yahuwah, which is Yahusha. It's all Yahusha, man. It's all it's talking about is Yahusha, the Mashiach in you. Okay, so if we go to Colossians 1:26. Colossians 1:26. So Colossians 1:26 says, the secret which has been hidden from ages and from generations, but now has been revealed to his Kadeshim, to whom Yahuwah desired to make known what are the riches of the esteem of this secret among the nations, which is Mashiach in you. There it is. It's Mashiach in you. It's the big secret of the ages. The hope of praise, whom we announce, warning every man and teaching every man in all wisdom and all order to present every man perfected in Mashiach Yahusha. See, perfected in Mashiach Yahusha. For which I also labor, striving accordingly to the working of him who works in me in power. So there it is. This is the full armor of light, or the armor of Yahuwah, if you will, is the Ruach HaKodesh indwelling you. And we are in Mashiach. We have put on Yahusha Mashiach when we have put on the armor of light. Extremely important to understand. I hope everybody caught that. And is there any questions on it? Is there any doubts, any comments, any fog that needs to be lifted? Very powerful stuff right there. Ain't it weird that when we die in the water immersion, we leave our body in the grave, and we resurrected into a new creature. Now our bodies become the living stone, become the part of the temple of Yahusha, the temple of Yahuwah, body of Yahusha, right? It's now his temple. We're no longer ours, but it's his. It's the body of the temple of Yahuwah now, right? So our body has become one of the building stones unto his temple, his assembly. He indwells his temple, does he not? Is his temple complete now? No, not yet. Go ahead, Phyllis.
I was impressed with the first time I came across and listened to Job. I was thinking, oh, how horrible of a thing. But it just sunk into me right now. The lesson to be learned is to not value possessions, not even people, not even your family. We don't value any of that. All we value is our soul being connected with Ruach. So I just see it as just shedding everything away, because in the end, when you go to meet him, it's just going to be you and your soul and him, period. You don't need these buildings and people and friends.
That's beautifully said. Anybody want to elaborate off of what Phyllis said, or got anything else of their own they want to say? It's just an important subject. Don't be shy if you do. Go ahead, Ted.
I just want to comment on what Phyllis was talking about, the book of Job. We've tried to read that, but because of the verbiage, the way that the way that the letter is written is very confusing. To me, the book of Job is probably the hardest book and the most confusing book in the scripture to understand.
Yeah, I just kind of think it shows us a little bit, gives us a little bit deeper insight into the game of life, and what's really being done here. Don't forget, Yahuwah declared the beginning from the end, the beginning of creation to the end of his creation. So that means if there's an end to his creation, he's going to destroy it, and he's going to come back and renew his creation or make a new creation, however way you want to say it, right? So there's a set period of time. There's a time clock attached, which 6,000 years, and we get a 1,000-year bonus round afterwards, right? To live under the reign of Yahusha the way it should have been from the beginning, right? And so I think the book of Job gives us a deeper insight in how why this is being played out, why Yahuwah did this. It's some kind of opposition between him and Hashatan. So Hashatan was the most beautiful, the most powerful of all the Malachim. It was his crown jewel, as far as that goes, if you will. And he fell. And so there was some kind of opposition came up. And I think Yahuwah was not surprised on any of this. He was not, even though it says he was astonished that there was no mediator between man, intercessor for man. Was he really astonished that he didn't know the man was that was going to happen? Or does that mean that when he saw the whole thing play out in front of him before he created anything, he was astonished to see that as he watched it all play out before he created anything? I think that's what that means. He was astonished beforehand as he saw it play out, as he was thinking of making his creation in his mind. So I'm saying, but afterwards, after he created it, and it happened, in our reality, he wasn't astonished about it then because he had already foreseen it, because he's not restricted by tenses. So I think if you see Job that way, it makes a little bit more sense. You know what I'm saying? I know there's some weird stuff in Job, right? Monsters and all this other stuff that we don't understand what he's talking about, but Yahuwah can see into the spiritual realm. Maybe that creature exists in the spiritual realm. Remember, he made things invisible and invisible, both. So he could be talking about the invisible realm, all we know. Maybe there's a parallel world that's spiritual that we don't know about because our carbon eyes can't see it. We can only see carbon in this fallen state that we're in. I believe Adam and Kua could see into the spiritual realm. I think their eyes could see spiritual. I think they were immortals to start off with. I really do. Well, I want to get off on that tangent, but one of these days we're going to have to get into Genesis, but this ain't the day for that. Anybody else got anything? Go ahead. AJ, you got something? If we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, when I first started reading Job, yeah, I was astonished for the first thing, there is a devil. I always had thoughts about that years ago. I thought it was made up, but mankind had us thinking on the physical, not so much on the spiritual, because they always get us looking at the physicalness of what the devil is, but it doesn't come close. The second thing, I prayed and I said, Father, please, I wouldn't want him to ask how I was, or if I would curse him or test me, because I was already undone, and I know I probably would have failed if God wouldn't give me the strength to fail. And I thought that was awesome. But all through Job, the Creator just showed his power, his creative power, his word power. And I found that awesome. That's what I just had to say about that.
Anybody else? Anything? It amazes me about Job. I think the thing that stood out to me the most on Job is Job wasn't allowed to do nothing. I mean, Satan wasn't allowed to do anything to Job without getting permission from Yahuwah. For some reason, that stuck out in my mind when I was reading it. It's like, hey, he can't do nothing unless Yahuwah says so. You know? I mean, that's kind of comforting, isn't it? I think it is. So if something happens to us that we're not wanting to happen to us, what is it telling us? That for some reason, Yahuwah is allowing it. So then we better try to come up with the belief of Job, man. We got to remember Job in that situation. You know, don't curse Yahuwah. Don't talk bad about Yahuwah because something's going wrong in your life. Matter of fact, if you praise Yahuwah for something going wrong in your life, it may turn around quicker than you think. Isn't that a hard thing to do? Thank you, Yahuwah, that I'm sick. Think about it. Have you ever done that? Have you praised him because of an illness? It's hard to do, isn't it? But if we do it, what are we doing? We're showing extreme belief and trust. What do you think the definition of love is to a Hebrew mindset toward Yahuwah? Wouldn't it be loyalty and trust? To have loyalty to stay with your husband and not go cheating on him with other idols or with the world or any other mighty one. To be loyal, to stay loyal to him and to trust him through thick and thin, no matter what he gives us, what card he deals us. We praise him for that card because it could be a blessing in disguise, just like it was to Job. How about Job's wife? Did she follow along with Job's mindset, loyalty and trust? Nah. Did he kill Job's wife, Yahuwah? Did he destroy his wife because she told him to die and curse Yahuwah? Remember, she told Job to do that. Die and curse your Yahuwah. Did Yahuwah do anything to her for telling Job that? Keep that in mind. Try to practice it. When you get a cut on your finger, instead of getting mad about it, say, thank you, Yahuwah, that I cut my finger. Give him for it. See what happens. Go ahead, Ruah.
Could his wife have been covered by his faith?
Mm-hmm. If you're a believer, then your spouse is delivered through your belief because you're one. Remember when we read that in Genesis where it said their name is Adam? It's speaking of both Eve and Adam. It said their name, there is the two, name is Adam. That's all it said. So he recognized them both as Adam. He didn't recognize them as Adam and Kua. He recognized them as one person. And so, yeah, the answer to that would be yes, in my opinion.
I can't remember. Did Job's wife die? I don't remember.
Did Job's wife die? Does anybody know the answer to?
Well, I mean, I know she's dead now, but I was just wondering, was she because he can punish her physical body, but still save her soul.
It looks like the next study might be Job.
Mark Torrio wants to be added in. You're muted, Mark.
Oh, I'm not seeing Toria. She's not in the backstage.
She says,
Toria,
there,
tell her to go out and come back in, Phyllis.
I can't.
Oh. If you can hear me, Toria, go out and come back in. You're not on the backstage. I can't let you in. I don't see you. I'm still not seeing her. Okay. If I recall, and I might be wrong, but if I recall, I think Job's wife did die. But on the other hand, I think he had a second wife, but I might be wrong. And she may have lived because, remember, Job did get daughters back, and they were the most beautiful,
Family.
most beautiful women in the world. Huh?
He got a new family.
Yeah, I think he got a second wife, and his daughters were the most beautiful women in the world. But I might be wrong, and it's been a long time since I read Job. Does anybody recall?
For 4 generations.
Yami was reading that he lived for 140 years.
And saw his children and grandchildren for 4 generations.
Yeah, I think he had a second wife. I think the first wife, I think Yahuwah did destroy the first one, but I might be wrong. I think it was Midrash or Agada or something like that. Let me see if I can find it. It's saying that Job had 2 wives, but so he does not curse Yahuwah directly, but by cursing his birth, he implicitly curses the Creator who gave him life. Job's wife, spurred with her husband, prompts her husband to doubt Yahuwah. And yet she is conspicuously absent from Job's happy ending. So the wife prompts her husband to disobey, to curse Yahuwah and die. In doing so, she deepens Job's knowledge and opens his eyes. And yet she is conspicuously absent from Job's happy ending. So it must apparently doesn't really say. So Job's life was restored for sure, and he had more children. Go ahead, Rick. It's saying his wife escaped death. So I mean, it's not. I guess it's not real clear. It's something that somebody will have to try to study and let us know later on. Go ahead, Tad's mom.
Should I punish Tad and Phyllis for bringing up the subject here?
Yeah, crack him over the head. All right,
got us off on the Job tangent.
Hey, we're deep in that one now. Apparently, what I'm reading here is it doesn't really say. She's just absent, from his after he gets his life restored. It doesn't mention her. So maybe not. Who knows? If anybody comes up with something, it'd be interesting though. All right, let's get a reader for 14. Let's move on. Finish it up for the day. Anybody want to read 14? Need a volunteer. Mr. Lewitt.
Well, we'll take this one. This is an important chapter because Romans 14 is misunderstood by Christianity severely. They keep talking about days, and the days that he's referring to are what a person chooses to use as a fast day. You know, they fast on this day and that day. They in fact, in the Natsarim writings, there's a statement that the proud Pharisee in the temple is saying, "I fast twice a week," and that was just a human custom that they did. But starting at Romans 14, notice that it doesn't mention the Sabbath. That's what Christians are taught that this chapter is about, but it's not. It's about fasting, where it's pertinent. Romans 14, and receive him who is weak in the belief, not criticizing his thoughts. One indeed believes to eat all food, but he who is weak eats only vegetables. He that eats, let him not despise him who does not eat. And he that does not eat, let him not judge him who eats. Now that word judge is the concept of criminalizing. You don't turn him into a criminal. For Yahuwah received him. Who are you that judges another's servant? To his own master he stands or falls, but he shall be made to stand, for Yahuwah is able to make him stand. One indeed judges one yom, or one day, above another. Another judges another yom alike. So some say that all days are the same, and some say no, that some are special. Let each one be completely persuaded in his own mind. He who minds the day, or the yom, minds it to Yahuwah. See, he's not talking about a Sabbath. He's talking about fasting. And he who does not mind the yom to Yahuwah, he does not mind it. He who eats to Yahuwah, for he gives Yahuwah thanks. And he who does not eat to Yahuwah, he does not eat, and gives Yahuwah thanks. For not one of us lives to himself, and not one dies to himself. For both, if we live to the Master, and if we die to the Master. Therefore, whether we live or die, we are the Master's. For to this Mashiach died, and rose, and lived again, to rule over both the dead and the living. But why do you judge your brother? Or why do you despise your brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Mashiach. For it has been written, "As I live, says Yahuwah, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to Yahuwah." Each one of us, therefore, shall give account of himself to Yahuwah. Therefore, let us not judge one another any longer, but rather judge this, not to put an obstacle or a stumbling block in our brother's way. I know and am persuaded in the Master, Yahusha, that none at all is common of itself, but to him who regards whatever to be common, to him it is common. And if your brother is grieved because of your food, you are no longer walking in love. Do not, by your food, ruin the one for whom Mashiach died. Do not then allow your good to be spoken of as evil. For the reign of Yahuwah is not eating and drinking, but righteousness and peace and joy in the Ruach HaKodesh. For he who is serving Mashiach in these things is well-pleasing to Yahuwah and approved by men. So then, let us pursue the things of peace and the things for building up one another. Do not destroy the work of Yahuwah for the sake of food. All indeed are clean, but evil to that man who eats so as to cause stumbling. It is good not to eat meat or drink wine, for it is good not to eat meat or drink wine, nor to do whatever by which your brother stumbles. Do you have belief? Have it to yourself before Yahuwah. Blessed is he who does not condemn himself in what he approves. But he who doubts, if he eats, is condemned because it is not of belief. And all that is not of belief is sin.
All right, thank you, Bill. Okay, so a whole lot said there. You can see that this chapter is basically all about fasting. And I would go to a little bit farther than that and say it's all about voluntary fasting. Doesn't mention the fast or the kafar, the Day of Atonement at all, does it? So it's more of a volunteering to fast to Yahuwah. For a lot of different reasons, people do this. So you can do it on your own accord, but make sure it's to Yahuwah. If you say, you know what, I'm going to go on a diet, I want to lose 10 pounds, and so I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I'm on a diet to lose weight, and then I'm going to tell Yahuwah I'm doing fasting for him, and maybe I'll get something out of that too. Well, you can't do that. Yahuwah, if you're going to fast to your Yahuwah, it's got to be for that purpose and that purpose only. You can't add different things under there and try to get a bargain. Okay, so a lot of this is, like Lou mentioned, is Christianity steps in and tries to point out things here, saying that it's about the Sabbath is done away with, or you're allowed to eat anything you want to eat, things like that. They try to interject into this, but it has nothing to do with any of that. It's mostly volunteer fasting. And another message here that comes out of this is I think is really talking about the babes or beginners. Be careful around them. If they think that you shouldn't just say eat meat that was sacrificed to an idol. Okay. And because they're weak, right? And say we as Natsarim know that there's no power in any meat that's sacrificed to an idol. There's no power in that because, first of all, the idol's not real. And there's no other Elohim but the living one true Elohim Yahuwah. So it's all fake. It can't hurt you. It's not real. The only way it can hurt you is if you allow it to hurt you. If you believe in the power that thing has power, then psychologically, consciously, you can hurt yourself by believing that. But the Natsarim know better. There's no power in any of that. It's not real. Like, give me that steak, I'll eat it. I don't care if he sacrificed it to an idol. There's no power in that. That food is given to me by Yahuwah. It's good food. It was blessed by Yahuwah. Give it here, I'll eat it. But if you do that in front of a babe or a beginner that doesn't understand these things, you could damage them and cause them to stumble. So instead of doing that in front of someone that's a beginner, you say, oh, no, I'm not eating that either. So you go along with them so Yahuwah has called them and he can progress them to becoming a greater believer in Yahushua. So you don't want to damage the beginners with the knowledge that that you've come to know. So you want to protect your little brother and little sister, okay? You don't want to cause them to stumble because Yahuwah's called them out. So, and Who are we to judge the way somebody else worships Yahuwah? Should we do that? No. The way somebody chooses to worship the Creator is between them and the Creator, not us. We don't say, oh, you shouldn't worship him that way. We don't have the right to do that. They didn't let them worship Yahuwah the way they want to worship Yahuwah. Okay, they're not our servant, they're his servant. He'll straighten them out if he doesn't want them doing that. It's not up to us. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying if you see them bowing down to a statue, you shouldn't say anything, because are they worshiping Yahuwah when they bow to a statue? No, they're worshiping a statue. So then you go say, get up off your knees, man. What are you doing? That thing's not alive. It has no power. Why are you paying obedience to that thing? You know, if you want to worship somebody, worship Yahuwah, and then tell them about the living Elohim. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying if they want to worship Yahuwah by not eating on the second day of the week and fast every second day of the week to worship Yahuwah, let them do it. Don't say, man, you don't have to do. What are you doing, man? That's stupid. Why would you say that? Let them worship Yahuwah the way they want to worship Yahuwah. We don't have the right to tell them what to do. So that's what I'm talking about. Okay, and that's what this is kind of saying as well. So it's called freedom of Torah. And we don't judge people where it says, therefore, let us not judge one another any longer, but rather judge this, not to put an obstacle or stumbling block in our brother's way. Especially it's got to do with drinking. Okay, so say a babe says he thinks it's a sin to drink wine or alcohol, we'll just say, or a beer. And you say, well, I'm a mature Natsarim, and I know that drinking a beer is not a sin. Okay, to you, it is not a sin because you have freedom of Torah. So to drink that beer, in your mind, you say, I can drink this beer. It's not a sin. I'm not doing anything wrong. Well, guess what? To you, it is not a sin. But if one person just says the mature as you are says, if I drink that beer, that's a sin to them, and they grab that beer and drink it, now they've just sinned, even though they just did the same thing you did that wasn't a sin. It's freedom of Torah. It's what you think in your mind. If you think something's a sin and you do it, guess what? You just sinned. If you think it's not a sin and you do it, guess what? You did not sin. And so we go to a beginner or a babe, we'll say, in the way, and he thinks it's a sin to drink beer. Should you bring a beer when he comes over to your house to listen to you, teach him the Besor of Yahusha? Should you go to your refrigerator and grab a beer and open it up and drink it in front of him, even though it's not a sin to you? No, because you can cause him to stumble. This is what this is explaining. Everybody sees it's pretty elementary. It's not hard to get. So that's freedom of Torah. Does freedom of Torah mean we're allowed to go out and worship idols or raise hell and go to parties and shoot up heroin? No. That's common sense. You can't cross the line. Go ahead, Diane.
I was once fellowshipping with a group of Messianic believers. I really enjoyed it. I really did. And that's where I was learning more and more about Yahuwah's set apart times. But one day after Shabbat gathering, they had a oneg, or a meal afterwards. And we had it outside. And someone, everybody brings a dish, a covered dish and what have you. But someone had brought pork, a big dish full of pork meat. So someone said, someone on the line said, oh my goodness, what kind of meat is that? and someone said, "Oh, that's pork," and another person, I was just listening. Another person said, "Now, why would they bring pork to an after Shabbat meeting, to an oneg, when they know, the people don't eat pork?" So to me, it was almost like a test of Hashatan, or maybe someone is going to stand in the background and observe who may go ahead and take the pork, But that I think was mean. It was sort of the opposite of what you're saying, Well, what's said in the scripture, where someone is offended by eating a certain thing or drinking a certain thing. But it was just an experience that I had and that I saw and that I observed, and I thought it was mean. Anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of like a snare or something, huh?
Yes, like I said, I was wondering whether the individual who brought it was standing back to watch to see who was going to partake of it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I couldn't understand as an individual why someone would do that, knowing that the people, don't eat pork. Maybe they eat pork, but the other people didn't.
Yeah, that's kind of that's almost acting like the devil, if you ask me. Kind of something devilish to me. Kind of weird. If something like that would happen, and you would happen to get a piece of pork and you not knowingly, and you swallowed it, you're not going to go to the lake of fire for that. You were tricked, And so I would just repent of it and ask for forgiveness and everything of Yahuwah, and go on, learn from that mistake. There's a lot of stuff that has pork or something that came from pork. It may not resemble pork any longer, but it came from there. And maybe it can't even really be identified as pork anymore. It's been so refined and processed. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't get real excited about mistakes, but I would repent and ask forgiveness of it out of ignorance. The great thing about the blood of Yahusha is it's able to wash and blot out all our sins, right? Even the unintentional sins and the intentional sins, which is fantastic. We're lucky that the blood of Yahuwah has that kind of power, and so.
And I'm thankful that, well, in the positions that I worked in with the feds when I was working, I used to observe a lot of things. I used to notice a lot of things. I was trained to do it anyway. And so when I noticed, I really thought that it was a mean thing to do, whoever brought the dish. When I go shopping now, and like you said, we don't know what they're putting all kinds of stuff in the food. You may look at a turkey sausage, but you have to read the ingredients to make sure that encasing that the turkey sausage is in is not pork casing, and things like that.
Yeah, that's right.
So I read all the ingredients for everything, and then I'll say, well, what? This has what in it? And it would have lard, L-A-R-D, But anyway, I just thought I would mention that.
Yeah, there's some like sausages or hot dogs too that say they're 100% beef, but they really got pig skin on the outside of them. You got to watch that too, And marshmallows come from pig skin too. Most people don't know marshmallows are from pig skin. They're from other animals too, but largely pig skin. There's a lot of stuff out there that you just don't know. And look, like you said, read them ingredients, man. That's the way to not to make the mistake. If you make the mistake, repent. Go ahead, Doria.
I just wanted to say I'm a vegetarian, so I've been very proactive in looking for where pork is. And like you said, the marshmallows, They're made from gelatin. Gelatin is pig. It's from their feet that's ground up. That's where gelatin comes from. And you would be so surprised to see how many things that it's actually in. So you have to be, I've learned to be really mindful. Like Diane said, I have to read everything. When you go to buy donuts, some places use lard, some people use vegetable oil. So I always ask. I go to a Mexican restaurant. Some people use, the baking grease to cook their beans. Some don't. So I always ask before I walk into a restaurant, and I ask. If not, I walk out.
Yeah, another thing that I found out, which I was making this mistake, I would go to a Mexican restaurant and I would order whatever with beans and rice and stuff, and I never knew it. I ate it, a lot. I like going to Mexican restaurants, right? But here I found out that they cook the beans in pig lard. I didn't know that. So I was eating the beans that was cooked in pig meat and pig lard, right? So I learned that. So now I say, do you use lard to cook your beans? Yes, sí, señor. I said, I don't want that. So, it's weird, man. There's a lot of stuff you can make a mistake. Go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, sorry. And also, some of the medications that they're making, especially the ones that come in capsules, some of the capsules are made out of gelatin. And so I asked when I researched the ones that I'm taking on whether or not the encasing, because it's supposed to melt down within your system, whether or not it's made of gelatin or what ingredients is the capsule made out of. So they're trying to trick everybody, actually.
Yeah, that could be some satanic people behind all that. You never know.
Yeah.
But speaking of gelatin, does that mean Jello comes from pig too?
Yes.
Oh man, that's
Absolutely. Yes.
Crazy. Go ahead, Tori.
But they do sell, if you can find it, kosher. They don't call it Jello, but it's kosher.
Okay.
Because when my kids and I found out some years back, we stopped eating Jello, but we found, because we lived in a predominantly Jewish area, they sold the kosher equivalent to Jello, but I can't remember the name now. It's been so long.
Yeah, but
Joyce is saying gummy bears is also. Go ahead.
Absolutely.
yeah, gummy bears.
Go ahead.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, because I shop at a store that I can buy all those things that doesn't have the gelatin in it. But with my doctors and my prescriptions, I actually have it in my in my file. So if I have to be given a prescription, pharmakia, like for antibiotics, they already know that it has to be vegetarian. So you can request it.
Go ahead, Rue.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that some breads are also cooked with lard. So you have to be very careful.
And do they cook the tortillas and stuff with lard?
I guess you would have to ask individually, because I know that Cuban bread, which I love to eat or used to eat, is made with lard.
Wow. Amazing.
Some of those bread even bring how do you call it? Some pork grind mixed into the breads also.
Yeah, and we're talking about pork, but there's also a mention of eating mice.
Oh,
with pig, right? So pig and mice, eating a mouse. And so that would automatically put squirrels and possums and skunks.
And a lot of people eat possum.
Possum and squirrel. But you can't eat that squirrel either.
Rabbit is another.
It's another one. Can't eat that either.
No ostrich, none of those weird foods.
How about duck? You allowed to eat duck?
Duck is okay.
Yes, duck is fine. There's a restaurant here in North Carolina called Texas Roadhouse. And my brother-in-law and I, we used to love to go there and have a good steak dinner. And you can ask for a baked potato, a baked white potato, or a baked sweet potato. And they would always have, a little bit of salt around it. So, and it was good. But one day, I just happened, something told me to ask them, what type of oil do they use to moisturize the baked potato with? And they said, oh, we use lard. And I was shocked. All that time, I was eating a baked sweet potato with lard, And I said, oh my God, okay. All right, you all need to put that on the menu, as an, part of the ingredients, in this baked white potato or baked sweet potato. I said, because some people don't eat pork, But not digressing, but just thought you might want to know. Be careful when you eat baked potatoes out.
Yeah.
There are baked beans that say vegetarian on them, and that you can
That you can
search
eat,
the
yeah.
ingredients, but it does say vegetarian.
But these were baked potatoes. You buy a baked potato, wrapped in the foil, with the salt on it. So I see Lou says that the baked potatoes are rubbed with bacon grease. Lard, same thing.
Go, AJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I had one guy ask me one day, can he drink? He was a believer. And only thing I could refer to what the scripture says about do not be drunk. Do not become drunk. But it doesn't say you couldn't drink, but it does say you can give strong drink to someone that's perishing. But I said, you could have a beer. Ain't nothing wrong with having one beer. I said, now, if you go have a whole case, a half a case, and then talking about how dry I am and can't stand up, I said, now, you're in another realm, brother. So I suggest one beer or none at all, maybe, if you can't hold it.
Yeah, scripture definitely does not like drunkards. It speaks against being drunk. Drunkards, alcoholics, drug sorcery, this type of thing. Any type of an addiction would be a big no-no for us. To take a drink of beer or a glass of wine at dinner or something is, to me, okay, but not in front of a babe that thinks it's a sin. Then I skip the glass of wine in front of that type of person. Don't want them to stumble. Okay. So if you have a guest that thinks that drinking a glass of beer is sin, then just don't drink beer and wait for them to leave, Just don't cause them to stumble. The part here where it says in verse 17 it says, for the reign of Yahuwah is not eating and drinking, but righteousness and peace and joy in the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, what does that mean? Anybody want to take a stab at that one? Verse 17, 14, 17. For the reign of Yahuwah is not eating and drinking, but it's the reign of Yahuwah is righteousness and peace and joy in the Ruach HaKodesh. What's that mean? Anybody? Go ahead, AJ.
I take a stab at it. Righteousness is not offending your neighbor or condemning anybody for any little trivial thing and making making yourself seem like you know everything. And it could be wrong, because that will cause not peace but friction when you do that to an individual. I think we should hold fast a lot of things we might want to say to people as far as what they eat or drink or what they wear, long as it's not outrageous, like the women ought to dress becomingly, not like they standing on the corner, but they're supposed to be modest in their dress, just as the men supposed to be modest in their dress too, because men, they can be dressed weird ways that's very seductive. But don't use eating and drinking as a tool to make someone stumble. Always looking for the good and maybe trying to help someone in their walk. I mean, that's as far as I go with that with myself. Maybe someone has a better answer.
Go ahead, Tori. Sorry, AJ. You're muted, Toria.
For me, it's not what goes into the body, but what proceeds from the mouth. What you're teaching others. It's not about what's going into the body. It's about the ruach. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so the reign of Yahuwah is not about eating and drinking. So there's no salvation in eating and drinking and fasting and things like that. This just falls in the lines of worshiping, okay? Now, if you decide to fast to Yahuwah, that would put that in the classification of worshiping him, okay? Not in the class of salvation or deliverance. So eating and drinking is really on you. As long as you're obeying the dietary laws and you're eating proper food, real food that's kosher, then it's up to you whether you want to fast or not. If you want to fast and all you do is drink, you're not allowed to eat that day. Or if you're allowed to eat that day and you're not allowed to drink, or both, it's entirely up to the believer. Using caution when you're around beginners and babes in Yahuwah. Okay? Listen to them. What they think's a sin, and that's not a sin, but I'm going to do it because I don't want him to stumble. I want him to get stronger. If you make a baby stumble when they're just starting to walk and drinking milk, they may choke, they may fall and get hurt, and they may stop even following Yahuwah, who's called them out. We didn't call them out, Yahuwah did, so we have to treat them gingerly. So just remember that. Now it goes down here. Of course, but righteousness is obedience. If you're being obedient to Yahuwah's commands, to the 10 Debarim and his commands, you're righteous. If you're being disobedient and you're not obeying his 10 Debarim, you're unrighteous. That's what righteousness is. It's obedience. Okay? If you're a lawbreaker, you're unrighteous. If you're obeying the laws, you're righteous. Okay? And peace and joy are gifts. When you have the Mashiach in you, he gives you his peace and his joy. They're gifts. They're answers to our prayers. We don't surrender our peace and joy to anyone. These are gifts given to us by the Mashiach. So we maintain peace in all situations, and we show joy for our deliverance, for our acceptance, our favor, the compassion of Yahuwah. His favor and compassion toward us should make us joyful. Okay, that's the reign of Yahuwah, not eating and drinking. Has nothing to do with it. Okay, so if we skip down here now to 20, what is that? 20, it says, do not destroy the work of Yahuwah for the sake of food. So the work of Yahuwah is when he calls beginners out You know, don't destroy the work of Yahuwah for the sake of food. All indeed are clean, but evil to that man who eats so as to cause stumbling. Anybody explain that one? You know, I'll give you all a hint here that this entire chapter is about fasting on certain days of the week chosen by individuals. This is not about keeping Yom Shabbat or the festivals or anything like that. So what does it mean? Do not destroy the work of Yahuwah for the sake of food, causing a beginner to stumble. All indeed are clean. This is heavy. The Christians point to this verse quite a bit. All indeed are clean, but evil to that man who eats so as to cause stumbling. Anybody want to take a stab at that one? Let's read the next verse, maybe it'll help you out. It is good not to eat meat or drink wine, nor to do whatever by which your brother stumbles. We were kind of talking about that just a second ago. Go ahead, Rule.
What I gather from it is that you don't want to eat something or to stumble or make another person stumble on purpose, that you don't want to bring harm to that believer.
Yeah, what does it what does it mean when it says all indeed are clean? What's that mean, Rule?
That is one that confuses Christians. And I cannot answer the question you're asking me.
That's okay. Go ahead, Tad.
I believe what it means by all indeed are clean is that every food or everything that Yahuwah has called food is clean. Because you can't call an unclean, you just can't make an unclean animal or unclean anything food. So it's already been stated that it was food, and so that is it. That makes it clean.
Okay, so if I'm picking up what you're laying down, Tad, you're saying that if someone takes a clean food that has been made kosher by Yahuwah, blessed by Yahuwah, ordained by Yahuwah, it's clean, and someone takes that meat and sacrifices it on an idol, does that make that food unclean? That Yahuwah ordained clean?
No.
Speak to us about that, sir.
That's just one of those situations like you were talking about before. If you have a babe, sure, they think that they've sacrificed it to an idol, but like you said before, we know that there's no problem with it, that it's not a sin, but we don't want to make them stumble, so we refrain from it on that occasion.
He had put up 1 Timothy.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think that you hit it spot on right there. Toria, did you have something to say, Toria? You had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was thinking about the food. Like you said, some will, like if they sacrificed it, like if I knew they sacrificed it, to their idol, I'm not eating it. But if somebody else is sitting there and doesn't understand it and they're eating it, you can cause them to stumble and say, well, I don't want to partake in any of it. And they might back away from what is the truth that is coming forward to them. Same thing if you're sitting at your Thanksgiving table and that's all they know, and you're saying, well, I don't partake, so I'm not going to have any, or I'm not going to partake in the celebration. You might cause them to stumble because they're still on a slower path than you, and they're not quite there yet, that is not for me to tell them they're transgressing, because they don't understand it yet. You will cause them to stumble or to walk away from what is coming. If I made any sense.
Yeah, I think you made a lot of sense. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, this actually came from Brother Lou. He pointed out 1 Timothy, where it talks about that, starting in chapter 4, verse 4, because every creature of Yahuwah is good, and none is to be rejected if it is received with thanksgiving, for it is set apart by the word of Yahuwah and prayer. I believe that's what Lou was trying to tell us.
Okay, so therefore I have a question for y'all. If you go to a pagan, say you go to a pagan person's house, you go to the house of a sinner to eat dinner with them.
You shouldn't go.
Yahusha did. You're allowed to do that. And all of a sudden they serve dinner and they come out with this
Pork.
steak, we'll say. And so they serve you the steak and everything, and then they say, well, they say a prayer, and they say they do this. They give thanksgiving to their pagan god, and then they reveal to you that it was sacrificed on their outdoor altar to their pagan god. Okay, do you eat it or do you not eat it in their presence?
Yeah, I know it says that you
do eat it?
Yeah, watch.
Anybody? Go for it, DJ.
Yep.
We can't hear you, AJ. AJ, we can't hear you. Okay, you're not coming in, brother. We can't hear you at all. Somebody else had their hand up. Who was it? Ted, go ahead. AJ, we can't hear you.
Well, hopefully I'm on the same page as AJ here, but like you were saying, like you said before, that they sacrificed, we know better. It has no power. So do we go ahead and eat it? I believe so. Yes, because if we don't, we're actually giving it power, and it could harm us.
Okay. Anybody else got any thoughts on that before I give my opinion? Toria? Go ahead, Toria.
I'm thinking like Meshach, Abednego, the three, that they were there, but they didn't partake in their food. I would think with myself being a vegetarian, there would be certain things I might eat, but it doesn't mean that I have to partake in their food just because I'm there. But to respect, you know, they're going to have to respect, I guess, what you're doing. I don't know how to explain that, but I'm thinking of that scenario.
Okay, and I think that's where unclean food comes in play. They were probably serving lobster, shrimp, and pig meat and whatnot, and that's why Daniel didn't want to eat it. Okay, and that's another question. I was going to come back at you with that one. Go ahead, Phyllis. Let's keep it.
I was wondering, I had to help a sister, so I was away for a while. But did anybody cover the fact that if you do eat something unclean, that you're only unclean until nighttime, sunset, then you bathe and you're clean again?
I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I knew that with certain sins that you became unclean until evening and you had to wash. But I didn't realize that if you made a mistake and ate unclean food, that it has the same effect.
I'll look it up for you. Okay,
that's interesting. Yeah, that's a fantastic point if it's written for sure. Anybody else? Okay, so my opinion on that is then I would eat it because of what Tad said. I would eat it and so that I could continue to give them the Basora of Yahuwah. I would bring in the Basora of Yahusha into the conversation probably after the meal, and so not to lose that's the only reason I would be there. I wouldn't be there to hang out with them other than to spread the Basora, or give them the Basora of Yahusha. I would eat the meat because it has no power over me. Okay, I have the Ruach HaKodesh in me. I'm in the Mashiach. There's no power. Their mighty ones have no power. Elijah proved that on Mount Carmel, that there's no other Elohim but Yahuwah. Yahuwah is Elohim. Yahuwah is Elohim. Ain't no other Elohim out there to be afraid of. I ain't afraid of no meat they went out and sacrificed on some altar to some false mighty one. What power's in that that's going to scare me when I have the living Yahuwah in me? I would eat the meat. And so I could have the opportunity to give testimony to them and witness of them. That's me. Okay. Am I hanging out with them and doing what they're doing? No. Yahusha did the same thing. He went into sinners and hung out with sinners, man. And he was the Pharisees pointed that out. Right? And what did he say? The people that are well don't need the physician. Only the sick need the physician. Now, if you're afraid that you go in there and eat that meat, the sacrifice or altar, and it's going to hurt you and possess you or control you or have power over you, then I'd say you better not eat it then. Go ahead, Phyllis. Phyllis, did you have your hand up? Not yet. Phyllis, I can't hear you. Not yet? Okay. Go ahead, Diane.
But that's only if the meat was beef, right? Not pork.
Okay. And that was my follow-up question. Okay, here's another question for y'all. Same scenario, exact same scenario, but this time they're serving pork. Do we eat the pork or do we not? Go ahead, Ruel, go ahead. Go ahead, Ruel. We can't hear you, man.
It's not clean.
It's not a clean food, so I would not eat it.
Anybody else?
And you would know that it's not clean.
Okay. Go ahead, Ted.
I just wanted to point out that there's not, so we don't get too off track, that there's not actually clean or unclean food. It's either food or it's not.
Like,
Can
So
you explain that, please?
I agree with it. Go ahead and elaborate on that, Ted.
Well, I forget where it is in I think it's Leviticus, but he where he tells us everything that's clean, and so we have that knowledge of what, if he says it's clean, then it's food. If he says that it's not clean, then it's just not food, period, and you don't eat it. That's about the deepest I can go on that.
Now that I understand, and so if they laid out pork or lobster or shrimp or whatever, I would not eat it because it's not the food that Yahusha said we could eat.
Yeah, I would excuse myself from eating it as well. I would not eat it because if it's kosher, it's food. If it's not non-kosher, it's not food for us. Okay, because we're in obedience to Yahuwah. So I agree with all of you. I would not eat the non-kosher meal with them. I would just say, hey, I'm sorry, I don't like that, but I'll have some of your potatoes and some of your corn or whatever, right? Try to be polite about it because you don't want to blow your chance to give testimony. Luat, could you're putting up Leviticus 11 and 15 there? Can you elaborate on that, sir?
Well, sure. Leviticus, or Uikra, is discussing what's clean and what's unclean in the scriptures. At Leviticus Chapter 11, it delineates lots of examples, like the rabbit. And this little bird right here is even mentioned. This is the national bird of Israel. And it's an unclean bird. You're not supposed to eat it, but it sure is beautiful. It's called a hoopoe. Anyway, I wanted to say that when we do touch something, an unclean body, another person that's unclean, for example, a leper or someone who has had a discharge and they're unclean, or a woman that is in her time of the month, and we're unclean if we touch them, but we're only unclean until evening. So we know that, yeah, there it is. Leviticus 15, Uikra 15, that whole area there, the first 10 verses, it explains these things. And the actual uncleanness is only there until evening. And you have to bathe, and change your clothes.
So are you saying, Lou, that if you eat something unclean, you have to bathe, clean your clothes, and you're unclean till dark? Is that what you're
That's
saying?
correct. Yeah, that's what Scripture teaches. And clean
That's
and unclean.
Leviticus 11:40.
What is it?
Leviticus 11:40.
40.
And it's covered in 15 also.
Oh, I didn't get that far.
Okay, can you read that for us, Phyllis? 11:40.
And he who eats of its carcass, we're talking about unclean animals. And he who eats of its carcass has to wash his garments and shall be unclean until evening. And he who picks up its carcass has to wash his garments and shall be unclean until evening. And every creeping creature that creeps on the earth is an abomination, it is not eaten.
Okay, so that's extremely important, everybody. So where she's reading that is you're not supposed to eat a roadkill. Okay, is what it's saying. But if you do, even if it's kosher, you're not allowed to eat roadkill, right? But this would still apply to eating. It's like pig meat. See, you didn't know what it was, then I would use this same process. I agree that falls under that same process. That's extremely important, everybody. Hope we're all catching that. So if we make a mistake, we can repent and say, I'm sorry, but you have to take a bath, clean yourself, clean your clothes, and you're considered unclean till evening. What's that mean? What should we do if we're unclean till evening? Should we go in our office and open up scriptures and read scriptures? No. I'd say we stay away from scriptures. We don't do anything until we're clean again. That's my personal take on that. How you feel about that, Lou? If you're unclean, should you be reading scriptures?
Yeah, we're always unclean. Being human beings, we're unclean. Our bodies, because we're this in this form. Reading scripture is, to me, the only clean water that we can expose ourselves to, really. I read the Psalms and I go, oh, it's like taking a bath or shower. It just cleans me. The goodness just bathes through my mind. And I wouldn't ever recommend, feeling like we can't go to Scripture. We can talk to Yahushua. He's always with us. He never leaves us. Our uncleanness can be the result of going to a funeral home and going over and, touching the body. We don't become unclean for any reason intentionally. But if we do become unclean because we shook somebody's hand and we don't know what their status was, their wife may have been in that time of the month, and then he touched her, and then you touched him, and all these things are relevant. But the obedience in our heart is we just don't want to do something knowingly. But if we happen to, it's forgiven. But knowing something is a sin, and going into it with our knowledge is an intentional sin. And I don't judge anybody about that, but I would not do it myself. I would just recommend, if somebody gave me hey, this is a pig, I'd say, well, I don't like pig. And like you were saying, it was a good explanation. You don't want to offend anybody, but people that we know that are close relatives will cook food for us respectfully, knowing that we do not eat pig. But there was a case where somebody intentionally did something, and it was a trick, and I pulled this hunk of flesh in the bean soup up, and I said, "Is this pig meat?" And they answered, "Yes." And I can't eat this, I'm sorry. But I didn't do it to offend them. And the other case is the same person who respects us and does not serve anything unkosher, which I appreciate, has a problem with being around alcohol. So we respectfully don't bring that subject up, and we don't serve it when they're here. Yeah. It's all about respect.
Okay, and let me just throw a curveball at you before we move on. Somebody had their hand up. Who was that? Ted, was that you? Nobody? Okay, so spiritually now, what's the symbolism in when you're unclean, you had to go outside of the camp and stay outside of the camp till dark. You weren't allowed in the temple area. You had to leave the camp or leave outside. You couldn't go into the temple area when you were unclean. You had to leave the camp, go on the outskirts until dark. What would be the spiritual symbolism to that, Lou?
Well, that would probably be related to mostly the Levitical priesthood themselves, because they couldn't offer anything to Yahuwah being in an unclean state. So they would voluntarily recuse themselves. They'd say, I can't deal with this. I'm unclean, or I suspect that I am. And they would just wait. But as far as an individual that was in the general camp, I'm not really that familiar with the study on this, so that I could appeal to somebody that's out in a tent somewhere that's not a Levitical priest. But the Levitical priest had a very strict ordinance to not serve as priest, even if their order had to do it in an unclean state. So they had, even if they had just a sore on their body, they had to say, well, I have this little rash. I want to have somebody take my place here for, I think that would be applicable there. But now that whole covenant, the old covenant, written on a scroll for the priest to offer animal blood and drink offerings in their time, that's all moot now. It doesn't have any, it's obsolete.
All right. Thanks, Brother Lou. Anybody else on this, while we're on this subject, have any comments, any further comments or suggestions or whatever? Questions? Nobody? Okay, so as it winds down here in chapter 14, it says, do you have belief? Have it to yourself before Yahuwah. Blessed is he who does not condemn himself in what he approves. What does that mean? Do you have belief? Have it to yourself before Yahuwah. Blessed is he who does not condemn himself in what he approves. What's that talking about?
Making bad judgment.
Go ahead, Ro.
Isn't this what you were talking about? That if you know that that meat cannot harm you, then it's no way it'll harm you. But if you have doubt, or you're doubting your belief, that then it may harm you.
Yeah, you're spot on. It's exactly what that's talking about. And then it goes on and says, but he who doubts if he eats, if you're doubting, and if he eats, is condemned, because it is not of belief, and all that is not of belief is sin. Somebody want to explain that one? Somebody take a stab at that one. That's a whole lot, isn't it? But he who doubts if he eats is condemned, because it is not of belief, and all that is not of belief is sin. Anybody? So my opinion of this, while y'all are thinking about this, is that this again is speaking of what I call freedom of Torah, and what Paul also called it. So if you eat, you're condemned if you're doubting. All right, why? Because if it's sin to you, and then you eat it, it is sin. Okay, but if it's sin to you and you do not eat it, then it's not sin. So it's freedom of Torah. It's in your conscience. It's what you're feeling inside with the Ruach, what he's giving you. So if you feel that meat that they gave thanksgiving to their false mighty one, okay, and you're questioning it and you condemn it in your mind, should you eat it? No, because if you do, it's sin. But if you go up to the one above that, do you have belief? Have it to yourself before Yahuwah, between you and Yahuwah. This is freedom of Torah. Blessed is he who does not condemn himself in what he approves. So it's the same thing. So if you approve it as kosher between you and Yahuwah, although they say they give thanksgiving to their false mighty one, and you eat it, it's not a sin to you, because you approved it by using your freedom of Torah. It's between you and Yahuwah, no one else. But you do not do that. The big caution here, the caution flag, don't do any of these either way. He's just giving you both scenarios here. That's all this is. It's one scenario, then it's the opposite scenario. Don't do either scenario in front of a babe, in front of a beginner, because you'll cause them to stumble. And Yahuwah called them out. We treat them gingerly. We like, oh, wait a minute now. I approve this. I know this ain't going to do, but this guy here with me, that came with me, my little brother, he thinks that's a sin. So you know what? I'm not eating it, because I'm not going to cause him to stumble. I'm going to go along and do what he thinks. Okay, so that's all that is. All right. Anybody got any more comments on chapter 14? Go ahead, Mom, Tad's mom.
It's actually Mary Ann, if you ever want to call me that.
I love Mary Ann. I'm just teasing you.
Seems like it was when we were younger, it was less confusing when Mom would say, we're having chicken tonight, but it's not clean. And that meant that it still had the feathers and head on it, and you had to clean it. So that was less confusing.
Anybody else? Got anything to say? Nobody? Okay, I want to wrap this up then with verse 11. Talk about verse 11 a little bit, and then we'll get off of here. It's kind of important. Verse 11 says, "For it has been written, as I live, says Yahuwah, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to Yahuwah. Each of us, therefore, shall give account of himself to Yahuwah. Therefore, let us not judge one another any longer, but rather judge this, not to put an obstacle or stumbling block in our brother's way." So we're all responsible for our own deliverance, for our own relationship with Yahuwah. It's between us, individuals, and Yahuwah. Okay? The only exception is when we got little brother, little sister tagging along. Okay? And so this becomes extremely interesting, this verse 11, especially when we look at it and says, "For it has been written, as I live, says Yahuwah." He always lives. He never dies, right? So he's always everlasting and everlasting. Therefore, each of us and every tongue shall confess to Yahuwah. Okay, so let's take that thought right there and go to Philippians 2. And in Philippians 2, go to verse 9 through 11. Philippians 2, verse 9 through 11. "Yahuwah therefore has highly exalted him and given him the name which is above every name." So what name is above every name? Anybody?
Yahuwah?
Yahuwah. Where does it say that Yahuwah placed his word and his name above all? Where does it say that in Scripture? Anybody?
I know it's in Psalm somewhere.
I think it's Psalm 102, verse 3, but I have to check.
All right, we got to find it. Everybody find it. Try to find it. Where does it say he placed his word and his name above all?
Oh, 138. It's Psalm 138, verse 2.
There you go. 138, 2.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Everybody go look at that real quick. Psalms 138, 2. We're going to come back to Philippians here. Okay, 138:2 Psalms. "I give you thanks with all my heart before the mighty ones. I sing praise to you. I bow myself toward your set apart heckle and give thanks to your name for your kindness and for your truth. For you have made great your word, your name above all." So his name is above all, right? So we go back over here to Philippians 2, and it says here, in verse 4, "Yahuwah therefore has highly exalted him," speaking of Yahusha, "and given him the name which is above every name." Which is what?
Yahuwah.
So Yahusha's name is Yahuwah. You seeing that? So that at the name of Yahusha, we got an echo there. Okay. That at the name of Yahusha, every knee should bow, of those in heaven and of those on the earth and of those under the earth, and every tongue should confess that Yahuwah is Yahusha Mashiach, to the esteem of Yahuwah the Father. Okay, that may be a little bit different than what some of you have in your copy. I have like 4 of them sitting here. in my oldest one, it doesn't say those words. So that's been modified or restored in this edition. And every tongue should confess that Yahuwah is Yahushua Mashiach to the esteem of Yahuwah the Father. I think in this other one it says that Yahuwah is Yahushua Mashiach to the esteem of Yahushua, our master, or something like that. Okay, so basically now this is comparing still in the Natsarim writings here, right? So let's see, where is that? Okay, and so so now let's take this out of Romans 14:6 and out of Philippians 2:9 through 11, and take those thoughts to Isaiah 45:23. Isaiah 45:23. Go ahead, Rule.
Lou wanted to say something.
Oh, go ahead, Lou. Go ahead, Lou.
I was going to say that when I first did research on that passage, I saw the Greek consistently, like in the Septuagint, would replace the name of Yahuwah with the Greek word Kyrios consistently. And it means Lord, Kyrios in Greek. But it was placed in the Septuagint and throughout the Greek of the Natsarim writings with this Greek word Kyrios. So when I reprinted the BYNV, I wanted to make sure that consistently wherever that word Kyrios was used, I dropped that word master and put the word Yahuwah in its place, because that's the thing they removed. And they replaced it with this abomination. They put this other word in a place where it should not be. The abomination of desolation, if you want to think of it in a sense, because Yahushua said, let the reader understand. So I'm going, the reader? What's that got to do with the abomination of desolation? Well, they replaced his name, something that's one of the two highest things. It isn't just a physical place, it's even worse. It's even more of an abomination than putting a statue of some sun deity in the temple. That's just worse than anything, because it misleads the whole world. They don't know who they're worshiping. But the word Kyrios and the subsequent word taken into the Latin as Dominus, it means the same thing, Lord. And that's what was taken into the King James.
Yeah, I understand completely, and I'm glad you made the restoration myself, because I always thought that that's what that should say. And Dr. Stephen Pidgeon made that same correction, exactly, same word by word as you did. So very interesting confirmation there. So I appreciate it, man. Thanks for explaining that to everybody. Okay, Tad, can you read for us Isaiah 45, verse 18, on down to the end of that chapter?
Okay. For thus said Yahuwah, creator of the Shamayim, he is Elohim, former of Eretz and its maker. He established it. He did not create it to be empty. He formed it to be inhabited. I am Yahuwah, and there is none else. I have not spoken in secret in a dark place of the Eretz. I have not said to the seed of Yaqub, seek me in vain. I am Yahuwah, speaking righteousness, declaring things that are straight. Gather yourselves and come. Draw near together, you who have escaped from the Gentiles. No knowledge have they who are lifting up the wood of their carved image and pray to a mighty one that does not save. Declare and bring near. Let them even take counsel together. Who has announced this from of old? Who has declared it from that time? Is it not I, Yahuwah? And there is no mighty one besides me, a righteous all and a deliverer. There is none besides me. Turn to me and be delivered, all you ends of the Eretz, for I am all, and there is none else. I have sworn by myself, a word has gone out of my mouth in righteousness, and shall not return, so that to me every knee shall bow, every tongue shall swear. One shall say, only in Yahuwah do I have righteousness and strength. He comes to him. And all those displeased with him shall be put to shame. In Yahuwah, all the seed of Yisrael shall be declared right and boast.
Okay, so there we got it. Now we have it, and we have it in the prophets. We have it in the Natsarim writing. This is indicating to us what? What do we now know considering these three passages? It should be very obvious to us that Yahusha is Yahuwah incarnated. Is not Yahuwah our deliverer? Came to us in a bodily form, made of flesh. Isn't that not who our deliverer is? He has the same name. He gave him the name above all names. How can Yahusha be a subordinate deity if he has the same exact name as the name above all names? Wouldn't they have a different name if he was a subordinate? There's only one name above all names. We just found out that was Yahuwah. So if Yahusha is a subordinate deity, wouldn't he have a different name? How can he still have the name above all names? No, he is not a subordinate deity. He is the living Yahuwah, come in the flesh. Yahusha is Yahuwah incarnated. It's pretty plain. He came in the name above all names, man. He didn't give his name away. He didn't say, I'm going to name you Michael Jr. or something, or Gabriel or anything. He said he came in the name above all names, Yahuwah, which he didn't want him to have another name. He didn't want to give his esteem to another. He said, I'm your deliverer, esteem me. Use my name, the name above all names, and give all esteem to me. I'm the one that came and delivered you. There's no one else. And we look over there next door to 45, that's in the same chapter. I mean, over in 45, at 6 and 7 there, it tells us that, I am Yahuwah and there's none else, forming light and creating darkness, making peace and creating evil. I, Yahuwah, do all these. And he goes on and on and on, telling us that he's our deliverer. So if we study chapter, you guys may want to do this, study chapter 45 in Isaiah and read chapter 46:10, which is right next door here. So 46:10 says, 9 and 10, remember the former events of old, for I am all, and there is no one else. Elohim, and there is no one like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from old that which has not yet been done, saying, my counsel does stand, and all my delight I do. So read that, then read chapter 45, and then go read Job. And see the game that's being laid out in front of us. The rules of the game are the 10 commandments. Go, Lou.
I got it. Okay. The chapter before that, Yashayahu, or Isaiah 43, brings up that we're his witnesses, that he is Elohim, but he's also referring to the fact that I am he. He said, you will know in that day that I am he. And at verse 10 in chapter 43, you are my witnesses, declares Yahuwah, and my servant, whom I have chosen, so that you know and believe me and understand that I am he. That would be Anihuah, I am he. And that's what he said when he knocked all those guys down with those words. When they came to arrest him, he said, Anihuah. Bam. Anyway, he goes on and he says, before me there was no all formed, nor after me there is none. I am Yahuwah, and besides me there is no deliverer. I. He says it twice. Ani. Have declared and delivered and made known that there is no foreign mighty one among you. And you are my witnesses, declares Yahuwah, that I am Al. Wow. Hey, it's just amazing.
Thank you, Lou. Yeah, amazing and very clear. I mean, there's no doubting here who our deliverer is. He has the name above all names. So if you know the name above all names, you know who our deliverer is. Let's just put it that way. And interesting, that part about I am, where he knocked they asked who he was, and he says, I am. Yeah, he said, yeah, and they went flying backwards, fell down, knocked down, right? Knocked backwards. He also said to the Pharisees, he said, if you do not believe that I am he, you will die in your sins. Why? Because Yah is our deliverer. That's why. You got to call on the name of Yahuwah to be delivered. And the scripture tell us that. I believe it does. Go ahead, Diane.
A thought just came to me when I worked at my second career at NC State. There was this veterinarian. I had taken off for Pesach, Passover. And when I came back, he said to me, so, Diane, how was your Passover? I said, oh, it was wonderful. My family and we had a wonderful time. He said, yeah, I know. Baruch haba b'Shem. I said, oh, Baruch haba b'Shem Yahuwah, melech ha'olam ha'aretz. And the man fell back up against the wall when I mentioned the name of Yahuwah. I mean, he went back. The other doctor, who was also Jewish, he just stood there and smiled. And he had like a peace come over him. And he actually came up to me and gave me a hug. But the other man, the name of Yahuwah, threw him back against the wall. And that, I just, woo, hallelujah. I said, truly, hallelujah. Because he was raised, as being Jewish. Yeah, I know. Baruch haba b'Shem. But see, he didn't finish. I said, Baruch haba b'Shem Yahuwah, melech ha'olam ha'aretz. And he just went, shoo. And he was a tall guy. And I had to tell my children my daughters when I got off from work, because that was awesome. A sign on how powerful Yahuwah's name is. And this was a person who was mocking, knowing he grew up in it, but mocking, But so that was interesting. Thank you for mentioning.
Diane, that is so exciting. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, they never were taught the name.
Exactly.
So you probably heard it for the first time.
Yes. But the other doctor, who was Jewish, Just a peaceful smile came over his face, and he walked up to me and he hugged me. Praise Yahuwah.
Well, that's a really cool story there, Diane. Okay, so the whole point of what we just did there was that knee will bow, every knee will bow, and every tongue will confess Yahuwah. Okay, or Yahusha. So it's saying it in the Natsarim writings and the Tanakh, okay, in the prophets. So this is also explained to us that Yahusha is Yahuwah incarnated. Okay. I'm just about done here. There's one thing. What you got there? Yeah. All right. And so we see the correlation though. The Yahuwah claims that as well in Isaiah. And so that's the knees are going to bow to Yahuwah is what they're going to do. Okay. Who is our deliverer, which Lou just made very clear by reading Isaiah 43 to us. I'm going to leave y'all with a thought here, okay? Because I'm not going to see again, and the kafar is going to come, and the Day of Atonement, and we're required to inflict our being on that day, and so we won't meet till afterwards. And next time I'll see y'all. So I just want to leave this thought with you, and not to cause anybody to stumble, but to help open up our minds to understand the scripture and to get our minds thinking about the things above and not the things below here on the earth, okay? So I want to leave you with this. And Lou Watt's track on the appointed times for 2022. If you all have that, you can refer to it. In the on Yom Teruah, which already has passed, we're in the countdown to Kafar, and it's represents. A lot of people say or teach that it represents the second coming of Yahusha. Okay, when the trumpet blows, so Yahusha comes, the second coming of Yahusha. But the more I've been studying this, the more something has came about that I really didn't. Well, I thought about it a couple years ago, but it didn't sink in as it did this time. And what I'm going to point out here for y'all to think about up to till Kafar comes is that when we hear the day of shout, it says Yahusha himself is going to shout, right? And I was always thinking, well, this is the second coming of Yahusha, but what really happens on the day of shout? So when Yahusha himself shouts, the dead in Mashiach is going to rise from the grave, man. It's the first resurrection group is going to come out of their grave, right? So Yahusha hasn't come yet. He just shouted and woke them up, and they come out of their grave. Now listen to this, okay? It's also the final warning, okay? It's a final warning that the end of the age is coming, which is it was the closing of Kafar. When the trumpet blows, signaling the fast is over, no one can be delivered anymore on this particular year that this all happens. Okay, so now we go into Kafar, which is the day of covering. Okay, it foreshadows the day of Yahuwah, but those sealed with the name of Yahuwah are redeemed, listed in the book of remembrance. This is the redemption of the living, the ones that are still alive, that still remain, that follows the raising of the dead. Now, here's my whole point. This is what I want y'all to dwell on. If the dead raised on trumpets, and on Kafar 10 days later, those who are living are redeemed, the redemption of the living are redeemed, this is when Yahushua's coming back. Why? Because they're caught together, the dead and the living together, and are caught away into the clouds as Mashiach comes back down onto the Mount of Olives. So what's going on in that 10-day period? From the time the dead are raised and when the living are transformed. Okay? So, if you really think about it, we're going to have dead people that we knew were dead and we were raised up at the day of the shout, walking around the earth for 10 days before the living are redeemed. This is going to cause a gigantic restoration of people are going to turn to Yahushua, man. Think about it. All these dead people are now alive. How many people are going to say, Yahuwah, deliver me? Because they're seeing all these dead people walking around for 10 days before the return of Yahushua. Wow. So there's what I wanted to leave you all with. Go ahead, Phyllis.
I always assumed that when they were raised from the dead, that they were going to be up with or join him in wherever his kingdom is. I didn't think that they were going to be walking around physically.
I know. That's what I was thinking too. But the more I was reading Lou's track here, the more I started saying, oh, wait a minute here now. The dead are raised on trumpets. Yahuwah himself is going to shout, and the dead are going to be resurrected. First resurrection. Well, they ain't going nowhere without the living, the ones that remain, because the ones that remain are redeemed on kafar. They ain't going nowhere without the redeemed that's living, because they have to be caught up together into the clouds as Yahushua descends. So they're going to be walking around on the earth for 10 days, and we're going to see all these dead people. How many people are going to convert when they see these graves open and these dead people now alive walking around in their mortal bodies? Well, I'm going to say they're in their mortal bodies for 10 days. It says in Scripture that the dead must be raised first. We ain't going to be changed first. The dead must be raised first, and then the living. Well, that don't happen for 10 days. Then we're caught up together into the clouds to meet Mashiach as he returns to the Mount of Olives with his myriad of messengers, of Malachim. There's what I want you all to think about up to the day of Kafar. Study that. That's amazing revelation. Like I said, I stumbled across that a year or two ago, but it just really kind of hit me just a few days ago, and I was rereading Lou's Appointed Time. It's on that, his tracks he puts out there, the Appointed Times 2022, Yahushua's Redemption Plan. You can read it on that. Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, I'm glad you noticed that.
You guys, hold on, Lou. You guys don't have to wait for me to call on you, man. If I'm not seeing you, just open your mic and start talking.
Okay. Yeah, what Mark is referring to is this little 4-page tract. It's called The Appointed Times 2022. Oh, there it is. And what this is, he was just explaining was spot on. It's, Yom Teruah, when Yahuwah shouts, he's going to shake the heavens and the earth, and the dead will be raised. It's the redemption of the dead. And then on the Yom Kippur, it's the redemption of the living. It's remarkable that we're talking about that here at this time of year, because he's quickening our thoughts. He's awakening us suddenly, so that the expectancy and the horror that we're going to be witnessing will be easier for us to see, because we're going to tolerate or endure to the end, because it's going to be horrific. And we need to maintain our belief. And that's very important. That's why we're rehearsing it.
Okay. Beautiful stuff, isn't it? Very powerful stuff, really. I mean, it's wow. Anybody else got anything to say? If not, hope you all have a nice kafar, Day of Atonement. Don't forget to inflict your being. And the thing is with that is if you have anything against anyone or they have something against you, take the time to call them and make peace with them before you go to Yahuwah. Make peace and then go to Yahuwah. It's a very, very, very important date, as we just found out. Okay? And give it a lot of consideration of what we just talked about with the kafar and trumpets. Anybody? Got anything else to say? If not, I'm going to sign off of here. Everybody good to go? Love y'all. I'll see you next time.
Love everybody. Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Yahuwah bless
shalom.
Love you all.
you.
Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah.
Melech ha'olam ha'aretz.
Wow.
Yes.
The blessing. We forgot the blessing.
Hey, Lou, go ahead and take us out the blessing, brother.
Yahuwah bless you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show kindness to you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. Thus they shall invoke my name on the children of Yisrael, and then I will bless them.
Shalom.
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 Goodbye, beloved of Yahuwah. So long, Natsarim, beloved of Yahuwah.